going on YouTube? My name is Chris, and welcome to A Modern Nation. One of the most sought after items last Christmas was the NES Classic, and I just happened to get my hands on one. But how does it compare to the original NES and hardware emulators? Let's find out. Last holiday season, Nintendo ran a limited supply of their nostalgia boxes, much to the dismay of millennials, baby boomers, moms and dads, pretty much anyone who grew up in the late 80s. However, the high demand and limited supply of these fun boxes prompted scalpers to take notice, jacking up the price and fond childhood memories as high as 500 times the retail price. Oh, but free shipping, how thoughtful of them. Over 1 month later and no salvation for $49.99, this prompted the public to wonder if Nintendo couldn't meet the extraordinary demands of the gamer public, or if it was Nintendo's attempt at a marketing tactic.
But you didn't come here to listen to me complain about pricing. You came here for a fight. An old Western shootout between the NES Classic and the original NES. The NES Classic brings retro gaming back to the mainstream with its classic trim and familiar gray and darker gray color scheme. The NES Classic is the new kid on the block with its smaller form factor and modern features, including 30 popular NES titles and native HDMI support. The original NES is the new kids on the block that your parents used to listen to before they got old and had to throw away all their dolls. Excuse me, I mean action figures. On the back, there's an RF adapter for coaxial cable connectors and a port for your power brick. You know, in case you forgot what the back looks like. I understand, it's been a while. The NES Classic is about 1/4 the size of the original NES. Due to advances in electronics over the years, the cartridge system has all but disappeared, and you can build a video game machine on a device the size of a credit card. Kids these days just don't know how good they have it. Just like the original NES, we see the return of the proprietary connectors. These ports are compatible with the Wiimote, so if you have one of those, you could use it. You're going to want to use the provided controller, though. One of the most important aspects of my testing is video quality, so let's compare the recording setups. On the NES Classic, I have the HDMI out running into my Elgato HD60 capture card and from USB into the back of my computer. On the original NES, I have composite audio and video running into an AV to HDMI upscaler, then into my Elgato HD, and finally into the back of my computer. This is really the only means I had of capturing gameplay, and there are some screen artifacts I'll simply have to accept. To get started, we open the door of our console and insert the game cartridge. Press it firmly in, down, and then close the door and hit power. Hold on a second, game's not working. I gotta take it out. Hopefully the game works this time. You've probably noticed that the door on the NES Classic doesn't open. That's because the games are preloaded onto the system. Simply hit the power button to get started. The first thing you'll notice is all 30 games and their artwork laid out on this side-scrolling menu. The menu looks more like an old MS-DOS game than a modern game menu. The game selection includes popular titles such as Super Mario Bros. 3, Donkey Kong, Castlevania, Dr. Mario, Pac-Man, Punch-Out, among others. If you look at the top menu, there's a menu item titled Display, and you're presented with 3 choices on how you want the game to look. First, there's CRT mode, which emulates everything that's wrong with cathode ray tube televisions, including horizontal lines across the screen and blurry graphics that hurt my eyes. I don't know why anyone would want to play games on this mode. I don't remember it being this bad, but that's a funny thing about nostalgia. Next, we have 4:3 aspect ratio, and I gotta say, it's not that bad. This is the mode that I recommend playing in because it cleans up the graphics without compressing the screen too much. There's only lag in certain games such as Super Mario Bros. 3 and World 8 when you're on the warship level. Last but not least, there's Pixel Perfect mode, which sounds like enhanced graphics, but really I can't tell the difference between Pixel Perfect and 4:3 aspect ratio. It just makes the bars on the sides of the screen bigger. We need a third competitor, a hardware emulator to compare the NES and the NES Classic. There's already many videos on YouTube about how to turn your Raspberry Pi into a retro gaming system using the RetroPie gaming software. You can go watch those videos if you want, but I wanted something with a little bit more power. This is the Pine64. This is one of the most powerful single-board computers you can buy on the market today. I picked up my Pine64 on a Kickstarter last year for about $30. In addition to being longer and wider than my Raspberry Pi 2, the Pine64 has some very impressive features. The Pine A64 Plus features a 1.2 GHz quad-core processor, 2 GB of DDR3 RAM, and gigabit Ethernet. In comparison, the Raspberry Pi 2 features only a 900 MHz quad-core and 1 GB of RAM. Is this single-board computer overkill for a 32-year-old gaming system? You bet your sweet ass it is. But this is a modern nation, and we don't do half measures. First step is to get an operating system. We're going to the Pine64 website, link in the description below, to download Android. We'll be installing the operating system to a micro SD card, so make sure you select the image that best fits the capacity of your micro SD card. Use a free utility such as 7-zip to extract your IMG file. Use Win32 Disk Imager to write the image file to your micro SD card. Select the drive letter to your micro SD card and select the IMG file. After you've selected your file, click Write and click Yes. When you see Write Successful, you can eject your micro SD card. Plug in your micro SD card along with your HDMI cable, keyboard, and power cable to get started. If everything went right, you should see this Pine startup screen. Go into your browser and search for RetroArch 1.3.4. The experience I had with the Pine64 and RetroArch was excellent. I had a great time with Super Mario and Super Mario Bros. 3. With the NES USB controller, the experience felt very organic. It was as if I was playing an original NES console. I did have a few issues with RetroArch crashing, but I think a program such as RetroPie that's more developed would be more stable. I noticed in the ROM for Super Mario Bros. That Mario was able to run faster and jump higher. It could have been a result of the programming to the ROM, but it felt very different from the NES original. Being the modder that I am, I recommend that everybody build their own retro gaming system, but we're here to determine how this compares to the NES Classic and the NES original, so let's find out. The first thing I want to point out is how incredibly wide and smashed the NES original screen is in the upper left corner. It's even more smashed than the NES Classic in 4:3 mode, although graphically all three are very similar in quality. The next thing I noticed immediately is how saturated the game colors are in the Pine64. This could be a result of the ROM or the emulator or a combination of both. One thing that I can appreciate about the NES Classic and the Pine64 as it relates to Super Mario Bros. Is that they got rid of that annoying sliding that you would do in the game. I had a problem controlling my jumps frequently and sometimes sliding and mistiming jumps in the original NES game, but not in the ROM or in the NES Classic. Another thing that I noticed that might be very subtle is how the colors of the NES Classic seem very bland in comparison to the original NES. The NES colors seem much more vibrant in comparison. On the Pine64, I noticed that Mario had a problem ducking, and I think that's a result of the ROM or emulator or a combination of both. By the way, I had no problem with the NES USB controller I purchased off of eBay. Only a few minor issues where I had to unplug it momentarily before plugging it back in. And now for the final results.
So which system is the best? In my opinion, the NES Classic actually performs better than the original NES. The NES Classic has better video quality in my opinion. It comes in a compact form factor, and it has a save feature so that you can pick up wherever you left off in the game. It would have been nice if the NES Classic controllers came with a longer cable, but you can always buy extensions. Is the NES Classic worth $150 or more? No. No, it's not. This device is for people that want something close to the NES original. I'm not going to say that the NES Classic is the same as the NES because the two devices are very different. More importantly, it showed me how far technology has advanced in the last 32 years. Wow, 32 years since the NES came out. Most people can get something close to the NES experience with the use of a hardware emulator, such as a Raspberry Pi, along with the RetroPie software, and a USB NES controller. However, there's a lot of stability and variability issues that come between ROMs and emulators depending on who created them and how they were created. I noticed there are many times where the emulators would crash, or I had to unplug and plug controllers back in to get them working. But a Raspberry Pi won't cost you more than $35, and you could run NES games on a Raspberry Pi Zero, which is very affordable. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure you give me a like and share it with somebody that you think would enjoy this video as well. Leave me a comment down in the comment section letting me know, are you on the fence about an NES Classic? Were you able to get one over the holiday season? And are you enjoying it so far? Was it worth it? Or do you have buyer's remorse? I'm sure you might get some traffic from people that are looking to buy it off of you. Join the nation by clicking on that subscribe button below, and when you do, make sure you click the bell icon inside of the subscribe logo, and it'll notify you the moment that I release new YouTube videos. And as always, you can reach me at one of these social medias right here. If you're looking for another video to watch, click the card in the upper right hand corner. It'll take you to a video where I put a custom window into a Steam Link device. You're definitely going to want to check that out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. All right. Go.